thing here. I haven't actually started a batch other than my friggin'... last year I started a batch for the bomb challenge, and that's actually the last batch I've made that wasn't cider.
Oh, wow.
Or beer. So I haven't I'm really backlogged on my bottling right now. My brewing area is a disaster.
Right.
So it's one of those things. You know those slidey puzzles where you have to have a clear space to start moving shit around to get stuff done?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have that clear space right now.
Jaden's saying, OMFG, use it.
Yeah, you're copping a bit of flack on the back channel there, right, Jack?
Oh, I'm sure I am. I was just looking up the Tosna because I don't use the Tosna protocol right now, and I was wondering if that goes by specific gravity or does it go by time?
Well, so what you'll find is that the time actually pretty well runs congruent with gravity.
And that'll be based on the temperature Sergio runs his experiments at, then, as opposed to what my house might happen to be?
Well, sure, but I know that Sergio, I haven't talked to him specifically, but I know that I'm sure he runs his temperatures at his meadery at the suggested, or thereabouts, the suggested numbers that you'll find in the handbook again, so... but the important thing, regardless of what method, and I totally endorse Tosna to the bone, you guys, if you do that and do what we've talked about tonight, you're going to have a really hard time messing your meat up. I promise you that. It really works. It works well. The important thing is to get all your nutrients in before your yeast has consumed 1/3 of your sugar in your overall gravity that you're expecting it to eat. So that's all I have for tonight, you guys.
So any other questions from the back end, or shall we start going into our closing down stuff? Jaden endorses Tosna. Good to hear, Jaden. Thanks for that.
Because he's famous and all.
I think it's really good because it makes it so simple that you don't even have to have a hydrometer, and we would never suggest that, right, guys? That's the first thing you have to buy before you buy any honey is a hydrometer.
Two.
But I think it's fail-safe because it's idiot-proof, really, and it works. It really, really works, and I suggest to use it wholeheartedly. Okay,
we're not getting into the hydrometer versus refractometer argument today, guys.
No,
not right now.
Right. And there's not even
there's
not an argument there once you understand it all, too, right?
That's correct.
Yep.
All right.
Okay, well, so everybody, we really want to answer your questions. I'm a little bit perplexed that we don't get any, and
because you're doing such a good job.
You're doing such a good job.
You really are. Every time you go, is there questions? The back channel's going, no, dude, just keep talking. That's what they keep saying. So I would say you're doing okay.
That's great. I try, every time I put together my material for the following week, that's the first thing I sit down and do is I ask myself, if I didn't know anything about this particular topic, what would the questions be that I would want to ask somebody? And then I seek to, write out all those questions, and then I try to hit them all along the way in a sequential order that makes sense. So I guess we're doing all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Dingrith is saying he's got a leftover question about oaking. If you're interested in entertaining that.
Absolutely. We want to ask questions. Send us questions you have in the future, where we're going to get to, so we can get them when we get there. And also, we want to answer questions from the past as well. So, every question is a good question.
Okay, he is currently typing it out.
Yeah.
Amidst our silliness about shoot, bang. Okay, come on, stop. Yeah, I must say I'm really backlogged on all of my mead making, and I have a whole lot of experiments that I wish to run once I get my mead area back. But it's one of those things where I've got 3 projects in the house and work outside the house, and Rabbit had to have surgery last week, and it's one thing after another, and I get to a point where I just don't want to touch anything ananymore.
Yeah.
So
know that story.
I get done working, and it's like straight to the book, and that's where I stay till bedtime. It's like, I don't want anything that I have to like learn or do after I get done working. So yeah.
Okay, Dinger's question has come in. Over oaking. I've only used oak once before. Not really sure when it's reached the it's done mark. Suppose the negative flavors would be too woody or too charred? How do you tell when you've over oaked? Or is it just too much flavor from the oak?
No, that's a great question, and thanks for asking that. It's really, Dingert, it's your personal preference. Probably most people might agree to a degree about the sweet spot, but you may like it more or you may like it less. Hopefully, because we've already spoke about how to use oak, you're selecting it with an intention in mind. And so then I would pay attention to that. And what I have found is that you can, quote, over oak a little bit, because once you take it out and then your mead ages for a little while, in some of the integration that goes on, well, in fact, when I make the teas with just water, and then if I leave those in some bottles for a while, you will see that it drops out in a dust in the bottom of the bottle. And so some of your oak, I guess what I'm saying is over time, the effects that you taste immediately will soften a little bit.
They'll definitely change, yeah.
Yeah, and so you can go a little farther than what you think you want in your finished profile. I would say if you can afford to leave it aging for a long period of time. In other words, let's say you think this week I need to pull my oak because it's about where I like it. I would suggest maybe having just a little taste more than what you think you like. And then if you can afford to wait for a few months, still in your aging vessel, and go back and revisit again and see if, because it will have integrated and will have fallen away from the front a little bit, you may choose to want to use a little bit more again at that point.
The sharpness of it will kind of round out. I have made Chateau plywood at least once. It does mellow out quite nicely over time. It was, the first sip I had after I realized I shouldn't have put that much oak chips in the batch, even though that's what came with the package, was, oh my god, this is ruined. So I just left it for a couple of months and then tried it again, and it was pretty good. And one of the things you'll find is tannins do drop out over time. I notice it when I go to rack, and I've got a little bit of brown or red left on the bottle, on the inside of the bottle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Specifically, if you're wanting a mead that you want to lay down and you want to have it age and be good in a couple of years, you don't want it to taste good now. You need to look at what flavors are in there for what it will taste like after it's aged. Mm-hmm. So if you put in some spices and a little bit of oaking now, and you wait 3 years, or as some people are for their kids' 21st, 20-odd years, things like that, by the time that comes around, it's probably going to be a little bit wishy-washy, because all those big, bold flavors of the spices and all that will have really taken a back seat. So you should over acid, tannin, add too many tannins, those kind of things, in order to have it age out into something nice, if you're looking for an aging drink. Most of the time when commercial people are making meads and wines nowadays, they make them to be drunk immediately. There was a study that said the average Australian wine lasts 2 hours after purchase. And so they just don't make wine to cellar anymore, because people buy it from the shop and drink it that night. There's nobody cellars. So it's a very different art as to how to make something that's drinkable immediately versus something that's drinkable in a few years. And that's something I'd really like to have a chat with Ken Tram about when he comes on, because he does make stuff that people are willing to keep, and he does make stuff to age, and I'd like to nail him down on that a little bit as well.
One thing I can add, but I can't tell you the specifics. I do know that there's different fining agents And depending on which agent you use, you can actually find out some of the oak that you have in your meads, but I just don't know which one you need to use. For instance, I think one would maybe take away some of the astringency. Another one might take away some of the flavor. But to be honest, I don't know which one is used for which particular purpose. So I think we had one more question yet, did we not, from maybe Jayden?
Jayden did have one, but he forgot it, I think, so that doesn't get us... he must have really got stuck into the mead tonight.
Actually, dang, if just asked for the phone number.
Yeah, so we'll see how we go with that. And Vicky, we'll work that in the background while we've already covered off most of what we wanted to, haven't we, Ryan?
Yes, we have been done for 25 minutes or so.
Yeah.
Okay. On to the dithering.
I mean, as far as what I had to present tonight, yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. That's good then.
So we're waiting for Dinger to get on the phone?
I haven't seen one come in yet, but...
Yeah.
Jayden's asked, will backfilling a sampled oak repair the mouthfeel? I'm not sure what you mean there by backfilling a sampled oak.
He was talking about using a traditional to replace if you've taken a sample out of the oak.
Okay, so if you find that something's over oaked and you're looking to fix that problem, you can blend it with a traditional. Is that what you're meaning? No. AJ, did you follow what he was asking there?
He was wondering if it would fix the mouthfeel. My initial response to that is if...
Oh, don't water it. Okay, he's asking whether he should blend or whether he should water it down. Don't water it down.
Never water it down.
Never, ever water it down, or you're just going to get watery rubbish.
But I mean, if the oak has caused something to change with the mouthfeel and you've got a traditional that has a good mouthfeel, then it might help. But, if I don't know if oaking can thin out the mouthfeel, so I don't know if...
It can. Astringent oaks, like Hungarian oaks, can definitely... one of the things I do as kind of a cheat, and it's not really cheating, it's just understanding what the process. If I'm going to enter a dry traditional in a competition, usually they're not a lot of mouthfeel, there's not a lot of volume, there's not very good meniscus on top of the mead in the glass and whatnot. You can dry out, for instance, let's make a 1035 mead, stabilize it, and by adding the right oak, you can make it present to your mouth in a different way where it's going to taste like it's 1010 or 1015, even though if you read the hydrometer measurement, it's 1035, and you can do that by oak. And so by doing so, you have something that tastes dry, but it has all the attributes of a very wet mead, because you didn't take those things out.
And in competition, that's exactly what matters. In fact, not in competition. In any circumstance, dry is only how it tastes.
That's right.
We don't worry about how dry it is via the hydrometer, because dry is really only how it tastes. So if you're going to add a bucket load of acid in, and you're going to add a bucket load of tannin in, it's going to dry out the sweetest mead that you've got. I remember having a winemaker absolutely faint and think that I'd ruined his wine by adding honey to it and finishing up at about 10:30, and he was amazed by how well balanced and dry it tasted, despite the hydrometer saying it was going to be disgusting. And so
I think everyone's had a 1060 that's could stand more sugar and a 1015 that's way too sweet. That happens.
I mean, that's all about creating a sense of balance, and I don't mean balance meaning everything equals out, that the scales are at the neutral teeter-totter, but to have a good balance where your pH could be all over the place, your sweetness level, all these different things can be way out in different places in outer space, but it presents well all together as a unit because it's well balanced.
Yeah.
And
and
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Balance is